Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at indie skirmish game STARBREACH, created by Elijah Kellogg and published by Slow Death Games. Now, this is the, I think 2016 edition of the hardcover rules. There's a softcover rulebook available, and it's also available in digital. And this is a multiverse universe skirmish game. This one is 2019, sorry. The idea here is use any miniatures you want. There's over 20 different warband styles, and play through either a campaign, a competitive, or a skirmish, sort of like of 4 to maybe 15 models maximum. Actually, probably 4 to 10. You're not going to take that many miniatures. You can use all kinds of different miniatures for whatever you want, and with the warbands basically being different themes, you can then kind of customize your own faction to whatever kind of miniature set you want to use. In the Let's Play you'll see upcoming, we're going to be using some AT-43 miniatures, because when games like this come out, indie skirmish games that are kind of miniature agnostic, what I like to do is take a set of models I haven't had a reason to play with in a long time that I'm really happy with and I've like hung on to, and just dust them off and give them a spin. And AT-43 is one of those games that I painted like a huge amount of miniatures for, even though yes, it was a pre-painted like semi-collectible game from Rackham. I stripped and repainted all of my miniatures because I can't not do that, and just give them some new life. And I have a collection of the pre-paints that I'm loading to Owen so that we can have it be themed and try out the game. So the core rules of this game are they take from, I would say sort of the popular token in bag activation system. If you haven't played games like Batman or Bolt Action, you might not be familiar with this, but the core premise is that your activation pool is a number of either chits, counters, or dice that you put into a bag, and then every model has basically one activation counter for every model in the warband, and you draw each round to see who's going to be activating. And then you go through until the bag's empty, assigning orders. Now this uses a neat mechanic where you have specialists and alphas who get to then push additional actions at the end of the round, kind of representing their better training, but for the most part, everybody will do one of 6 things during the given turn. What do you need to play? Well, you need some models you like, 28 mil, whatever. A 3x3 square, that's the general game size. Complete warband roster sheets and a copy of the game rules, so fill out your roster sheets. An identically shaped and sized but different color set of 6-sided dice in a dice bag used for as order dice. You can also order specialty order dice, which are also being printed by Slow Death Games. I have a selection of them. Some counters to keep track of a few in-game situations, like if there's certain states or statuses that aren't covered by orders. You'll need some just colored chits to mark those things. Some just D6s. It's a D6 based game. It uses a bell curve of 2D6 added together. So typically you're rolling 7s and then it goes up and down from there. And then a measuring device in inches. And other than that, you're measuring from edge to edge on bases. And then there's a few more abbreviations such as UC. It means universal credits. It's your point values and also your victory points in the same time. Winning the game, typical game lasts 6 turns, and the person who has the most universal credits wins at the end of the game. Credits can be earned by killing models, killing the alpha. You get their cost basically when you kill them. Killing the alpha is an additional 55 because he actually is typically free. You just pay for his gear. And then there will be the basic bonuses that you'll get for every individual mission, depending on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. Building warband's pretty simple. They do give some guidelines on base sizes. You want all of your infantry to be roughly 20 to 25 to 32 mil bases, so standard infantry size for most wargaming stuff. And then your alphas can be on a heroic base if you want, 40 mil. Mech models should be anywhere between 32 and 50 millimeter bases, so typically from, let's say, big Space Marine size up to, I guess, Infinity Tag size. At player's discretion, you can make them bigger if you want, but it's up to you, basically based on your model collection. There's 2 types of soldiers. You have soldiers and specialists. Your soldiers you can spend any amount of your universal credits on. Your specialists you can spend only 40% of your limit, so typically about 48 points. And then for simplicity's sake, everything's referred to as a soldier. Now mechs are slightly different in the game. They're very heavily armed. They can fire either both their primary weapons once or one of their primary weapons twice when they shoot, so they're a bit more active. They can, unfortunately, not take advantage of the down order. So they can get the order still, they can be pinned, but they don't get any bonus from doing it, so they don't get to hide when they make their dodge rolls. And then you have some stabilization equipment, which means you ignore the move and fire penalty for hitting an advance order, which is pretty cool. Now, you also break down when you get to 3 or less wounds. You'll start to take additional effects, basically, because your systems become damaged, you're operating less efficiently. And then finally, you can never get healed. You can only take weapons marked with the medium size, like or M. I think it's mech, actually, is what it means. And with rare exceptions, you can't take any relics. And M/weapons are exclusively available to mechs alone. So big like support style weapons that you can't carry on a human being would be put on a mech instead. And then the profile for a soldier. So this is a 1-stat game. It's not a 1-stat game. It's a 1 relevant stat game. You have your movement allowance, which is how far you can move with a move action. You have your initiative. That's your 1 stat. It's kind of like fight in Frostgrave. It does everything. It attacks, it dodges, it casts leg powers. It's a single stat, basically, to represent how well trained you are. You have your health, how many hit points and damage you can take. You have your armor, how much damage your protection absorbs, basically, whenever you're hit. And then your cost, universal credits. So a basic human private costs 10 UC. Actually costs 8, but that's just a discrepancy between this and the list. And he has a movement of 5, can move 5 inches when he moves across the battlefield. Initiative of 3, that's what he adds to his 2d6 roll when he's attacking someone. 8 health boxes, so he can take 8 points of damage before he dies, and an armor of 4. Actually has an armor of 2 typically. It means he can soak up that much damage when he's hitting somebody or being hit. Weapons, relics, and abilities. So these are your things that add on. Every weapon has a stat, it has a range, it has a attack value, how many times you roll to attack with it when you fire with it, and then a damage value, which you add to your basic damage when you make an attack roll, and then it'll have special traits based on what it does. So it could be bulky, for instance, where it's, unwieldy, where it doesn't gain bonuses if a specialist or a alpha uses it later on in the turn. It could be compact, which means it can move and fire with any penalty. There's a bunch of different rules. We'll get to them later. And then you have your order dice. So whenever you draw one of your order dice from the pool, you have to assign to a soldier that hasn't activated yet. And you can do one of a number of things. They can go down. Now, sometimes you can get forced to take that order too if you get hit by a AoE weapon, and if you hit but don't die, you're automatically having your order dice removed from the bag and then put on you. But you gain +2 initiative for making dodge rolls against range attacks later on. Basically, you kiss the dirt. Mend, you get to roll a d6 and get that many life boxes back, unless you're a mech. So you get to roll dice basically and add to your health. Cover fire, so that is instead of aiming at a single model, you pick a point in the battlefield and everything within 2 takes a range attack, but it's at a penalty. Firing, that one is the soldier stands up and just shoots, and you don't suffer any penalties or bonuses usually. It's just you don't go anywhere, you shoot. Advance, you move plus a shoot, but you're -1 initiative to any shots. So basically when you're -1 penalty to hitting because you're moving and firing, so you get to move your move stat and then fire. And then run/assault, you move twice your speed. If you enter melee, you get a free attack against model in melee. Otherwise, your activation ends. Playing out a battle. So you roll d6, you determine deployment zones based on the type of scenario that you're playing. So you dice off. The winner will get to pick which side they deploy on. The opponent then deploys their whole warband, and the winner deploys their warband. And then you go through the 3-phase turns for 6 turns. So you draw order dice and execute orders. You do all that. Then you take special actions and execute special actions. So the person who didn't go first in the order phase will then get to nominate one of their alphas, specialists that didn't do a run order or a cover fire order, because those are considered to be too time intensive. They get to do an additional action from the following list. They can focus fire, which is take a range attack, and on top of that, that range attack ignores the penalty or the bonuses for cover because you're just really focusing on shooting. You could mend, so they could heal d6 if they want. They could assault, which means move a basic movement. And just like an assault during the order dice phase, the enemy soldier may execute a fire in response to the assault action. When assaulting order is moved to base contact, it immediately resolves close combat, so they get an additional push to try and charge. So basically, if you wanted with your alpha or your specialist, you could move and fire, then move and fight in close combat afterwards the second turn. Ambush, you hunker down, and then you get to make a ambush attack. Basically, if someone makes an action line of sight, you can trigger almost like an Overwatch. You can do a surprise shot or a surprise assault. And then the end phase, you clean up and prepare for the next turn. You count the number of active models you have on the table still, pull their order dice, put them in the bag with your opponent's order dice, and start drawing for the next turn. And when the battle's over, you figure out basically your difference in UC. Difference of more than 120 is a crushing victory. and less than 30 is going to be an entrenched stalemate. All your special weapons, like I said, AoEs, they shoot everything within 2-inch radius, basically. So you pick a point in the battlefield, hit everything within 2, but you're at -1 to hit. But the nice thing is you ignore cover because it's a blast. Unwieldy, you don't get the bonus for ignoring cover during focus fire, it just counts the regular shoot action. Compact, you don't suffer the -1 to hit. Grenade, you can shoot over obstacles less than 3 inches tall. So you can hum grenades over walls and stuff, which is kind of cool. And then range attacks. Okay, so when you make a range attack, it's pretty simple. It's the same process for doing a close combat attack, pretty much. You are going to roll 2d6 and then add your initiative stats. Let's say that same private who is initiative 3 would add to that roll of 7 and get a total of 10. Your opponent, let's say he's initiative 2, would roll a 5 and add 2 and get a 7. So it's a difference of 3. That's your base damage. Now, if you're shooting with, like, let's say a bolt rifle, add the damage of the bolt rifle to that total, 3, subtract the armor of the target, let's say it was 2. So with a difference of 3, plus 3 damage is 6, minus 2 for armor, that guy would take 4 hit points in damage. So it's a basic 2d6 opposed roll, adding your base stat. That's why I'm saying initiative does everything. If you can stack initiative really high, you're both defending yourself and able to fight really well, and then reducing it by armor. So heavily armored targets typically have average initiative, whereas highly armored targets, low armored targets might have a high initiative to represent how dodgy they are. And then you apply your wounds. Close combat's the same exact result, except the player with the higher outcome wins the round of combat, and the losing soldier must apply a difference in damage. So both sides get damage bonuses. So when you fight in melee, it's not unopposed. If you lose the melee when you charge in, you get hit back, which is a big deal. If the result of the round, close combat kills a soldier and they're removed as a casualty, if it doesn't kill them, the winning player can choose one of 3 options. They can push them back 2, step out of combat, move their own model in any direction up to 2, or fight another round of combat, but the enemy soldier must apply a -2 initiative modifier to the next combat roll. So when you're fighting, you're a -2. And then your health, if you're walking wounded, you can suffer penalties as well, and there's various penalties to range attacks and stuff. You're -2 initiative if you're walking wounded. Soldier's rank attack is cover fire, so if you're doing a cover fire shot. If you're shooting in response to an assault, someone charges you, -2. If you did an advance, -1. AoE weapon, -1. If you are within half your max range, you get +1 to hit. And then if you're within, if you have high ground, so you're more than 3 inches elevated to the target's base, then you get +2 initiative. Dodge roll modifiers for the defender. If they're behind partial cover, it's +2. If they're down, it's +1, and it's down, they're +2. But you don't get it if you're a mech. Psych powers can be done basically you doing the shoot order. If you do make a range attack, you can also opt to a psych power. It's the same kind of test. It'll have a difficulty number. So let's say my big psychic person is initiative 5 and it's difficulty 10. I'd have to roll 5+ on 2d6. Hey, I got it off, and I'd apply the effects of the power. Now there is some ability to resist powers, but you have to have a psyker in your warband, and that makes psychers really powerful against warbands that don't have one. Even if they do have one, they have to not have been activated yet, and they only can protect themselves or models within 6. Then you get your train effects. Full cover means you can't shoot somebody, but you can throw a grenade at them. Partial cover is +1. Difficult ground slows you ground. High ground gives you the initiative bonus. And then thematic elements might have special rules based on what they are. Lots of psych powers. They're basically divided by faction into good guy and bad guy psych powers. So the School of Order, the Legion of Man, the Coven, the Lorani Empire, the Path, the Inquisition, the Marshals, the Continuum, and the Nomadic Raiders all can take from this school. You can do everything from heal people in a big radius, to make people forget things or dismantle people's weapons and stuff. And then the School of Disorder is mostly about damaging people, where you can leech life off them, possess models in the enemy warband and make them attack, blast people, decay them, wither them. The School of Time lets you teleport and move around. School of Bioinstinct, you can basically improve yourself. It's used for like the Tyrannid style factions or the Predators. So the Hive Cult, the Hunters, and the Nomadic Raiders. Plasmids, the Ancient Machine, the Machine Cult, the Continuum Syndicate, the Intergalactic Marshals, the Hunters, and the Resistance can use some of these. Plasmids kind of represent sort of maybe even non-psych powers, like if you're a machine and your nanotechnology is knitting you back together or stuff like that. And the rules for psych block and psych counters. Alpha skills. Your alpha's your unit leader. They're in your squad when you first build them. They're free typically, and they'll usually get a bunch of free skills. You can pick a skill from here, including the Inspiring Presence skill. So Inspiring Presence skill is when they do a fire order nearby or cover fire, or they advance. Everyone within 3 of them pulses at the start of the beginning. They also get +1. So when they lead the way and they go first, models around them get better. If you want to spend a skill slot, you can also increase a skill to a higher level. So input Inspiring Presence 2 or 3 increases the range and the ability sometimes. Or you can buy additional skills sometimes by spending UC and upgrading people. And then your scenarios. Now there are 6 sort of standard scenarios for playing in, you know, air quotes, tournaments, or for playing in campaigns, and then lots of asymmetrical scenarios as well. They're everything from like retrieving intel to surviving a sort of an apocalypse, infiltrating defenses, capture and retrieve, sabotage. These are the asymmetrical ones with attacker and defender. Controlling a warp gate, the Black Mirror. And then lots of rules for 3-player scenarios, and also for 2 to 4-player scenarios, like a cult following. Running Man for 4-player scenarios. The only good bug is a dead bug, and then a set of specific 4-player scenarios at all, like Fight for the Center, Steal the Beacon, a Mecha Graveyard, Tower of Power, Reinforcements have arrived, and Information War. And then even 5 or 6-player scenarios, and rules for those as well, like a team battle. Campaigns and tournaments, you get full rules for running a campaign, for setting a winner and like how long it goes for, playing STARBREACH campaigns, and a table of like scenarios to play, organizing a tournament. And then finally, all your warbands. And this is the bulk of the book here. We're looking at like 40 pages, 60 pages almost of warbands. That's where the bulk of the meat is here. Each of them is fairly unique. And each of them, if you look at them long enough, you can identify as being some type of trope you probably have a miniature collection for. So like the Legion of Mankind could very easily be Guardsmen or Space Marines. The Terror Legion could very easily be corrupted Guardsmen or corrupted Space Marines. The Soldiers of Abaddon, Deep Space Demons, could very easily be demons from the warp. The Hive could very easily be, you know, Tyranids. The Ancient Machine Soldiers could very easily be Necrons, the Coven Empire, the Lorani Empire, Eldar and Dark Eldar, corrupted Lorani. You know, it goes on and on. The Urak Warlords could very easily be Orcs, Nomadic Raiders, the Resistance Soldiers, Inquisition Soldiers, Hunter Soldiers, Terror Cult Soldiers, Intergalactic Space Marshals, the Space Cops, the Continuum Cigarettes, the Dark Path. You've got all kinds of like the Path and the Dark Path are basically Jedi and Sith. The Machine Cult and the Hive Cult, basically Gene Stealer cults, and whatchamacallit, Dominus Mechanicus. So lots of options, and then each of them has their own relics they can take, special weapons they have access to, and you're building up to 120 UC typically. So when I built mine, for instance, I built a Legion of Mankind army for my UNA Dark Stars, and they had a sergeant, and he could take he's basically free, but he has to pay for his weapons. And then he could take up to 2 grenades of any type for free. He could take relics, may take up to 2 relics at cost. Alpha skills, he gets 1 natural leader 1 and any 1 skill for free, plus 1 additional skill for 3 universal credits. So when I played my first game, I played with a support mech, which was my TAC arm. I had a medic and an engineer with a rocket launcher, and then I had a corporal, a sergeant, and 4 privates. And that was my army. I had 9 models my army. Owen, on the other hand, played with the Cult of the Machine. Where is it? Back here, Machine Cult. And he took a Cyborg Prophet, the Alpha / Psyker, along with a bunch of Cyborg soldiers, and then 3 Big Brothers, because the Big Brothers they fit into his, Big Brother Mark 1s. They fit into his 48 points because you could take 3 of them basically. So he took 3 of the big red block suits, and it was cool. He basically wanted to theme them around what was that game called with all the ghosts? Oh geez, Fear. He wanted it to be like the Cyborg soldiers, the replicant soldiers from Fear. And we played a couple games, and so then at the end here you got your cheat sheets, so all of your roster sheets and stuff, and a quick reference. So nice light core rules, about 20 pages of core rules, and then lots of time spent on faction building, so about 20 different factions, to basically allow you to use any miniature collection that you want, sci-fi wise, to play a game. And that's what I like about this, nice and open-ended. Now there's a lot of folks taking this rulebook already and doing their own sort of like, their own sort of thing with it. There's a Dune 28 big collective right now. They're going to be meeting up at Adepticon, doing a 28 mil Dune game using these rules, but you could do anything you want. Starship Troopers, you know, any old model collection doesn't have a rule set right now. You can dust off your Void miniatures, your Warzone miniatures, whatever you want, and play a nice light skirmish game of up to probably like 4 to 12 models, probably, if you really maxed it out. because you actually have to be a bit more than that probably, because you have to take at least some basic guys. So probably 6 to 12 models if you're looking at skirmish stuff. And yeah, it's a really fun sort of like simple system and super flexible. That's what I like in my miniature agnostic skirmish system. So if you are on the hunt for a multiverse sci-fi tabletop skirmish game, STARBREACH is doing really well right now. And I think right now they are crowdfunding, it might be in its last day actually, a print run of the software book. If you want to grab it in PDF, if you want to get a physical edition, check it out from Slow Death Games. So big thanks for Chris from Slow Death and Elijah for sending this along for me to check out. We'll see you next time, and Let's Play will be up in the future. I think it's in 2 weeks. Yep, we've already filmed 2 games, so you'll be able to check that out soon. Next time I'm Ash. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Ray Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.